Hello everyone. We are going to learn a very complicated opening for black today in this video. It's the King's Indian defense. So it's an opening where black just fianchettos the bishop by putting the bishop on the king side over on g7. That's why it's called King's Indian defense. Now the move order that happens is d4, knight f6. Black is stopping white from playing e4. So white plays c4 and black goes g6. And this is the King's Indian defense. So after this, the game is pretty straightforward. Like the next few moves are most often played knight c3, taking a piece out and preparing e4. Black goes ahead with fianchettoing the bishop, and white plays e4. At first glance, this position could look very scary for black because white has this huge sender. And after e4, black usually just does not castle. You have to deal with this. You cannot let this pawn come forward. So black plays d6. This move is very important. Instead of that, if you castle, then white would have pushed d5 and we'll be in trouble. So why is black playing this opening? Because black has a very nice bishop and black will attack the sender later. So white has pushed his pawns forward. That will become a weakness later. So the game will be very complicated because you're giving your opponent the sender and you're hoping to attack it later. So here after d6, white usually either plays knight f3, the safest option, the most played option, and the other option is a more aggressive f4. This is called the four pawns attack. This is very aggressive, also very risky because you're opening up your king and you have a huge sender, but that sender can be attacked at some point with c5 or after castles with e5 or c5. So let's see what happens with knight f3. After knight f3, black should castle, and white usually plays a move like bishop e2. And after bishop e2, basically, just a second, yeah, basically there is a very important move here, e5. This move is very important because without challenging the sender, black will not be able to have any chances in the game. So now the question is, isn't it a free pawn? It looks like a free pawn. Takes. Let's say white takes the queen and then takes the free pawn. Then black can just play knight e4 and take back the piece. So takes and takes. This becomes a good position for black because black's pieces are more active and this bishop is very powerful. So let's go back. So after e5, which is a very strong move, which is a must if you want to challenge the sender, after castling is when you need to play e5. Now, white usually ignores it and just castles. And here the main line is knight c6 and inviting d5 in the knight moves. So I'll just take you through a few more moves so that you understand how exactly the middle game will proceed. Here, white can go for something like b4 or a4 or even move the knight. Let's say white plays b4. Black has to play something very concrete, like he has to move the knight either here or here, and you need to play the f5 move. That's a key move when you play the King's Indian defense. King's Indian defense is an opening that's very aggressive because black is trying to attack on the king side. He has got this f5 push, which will create problems. For example, if white plays something like c5, okay, c5 is not possible. Let's say a4, we'll just directly play f5. And if pawn takes, we would even take back with the pawn. This becomes a very nice pawn structure. They can go forward, and our chances are very good on the king side, right? So that is the major idea in the King's Indian defense. Black goes for a kingside attack, especially with the move f5, starting off things. Now let's look at the game played between Viktor Korchnoi and Garry Kasparov. It was played long back in Amsterdam, and uh, it was a King's Indian, but in a different move order. We get to the position we just saw, but in a different move order. White played knight f3, knight f6, c4, g6, knight f, knight c3, bishop g7, e4. Here you have to remember to play d6, otherwise white pawn will come forward. So d6, d4, and castles. If you remember, this is the exact position we just looked at. We got to this, I mean, they got to this position in a different move order. That's all. Now, the main move here for white is bishop e2. Yeah. And here, there's a very important move for black, which I told you, e5. Right. So after e5, white usually just castles. And now knight c6, inviting d5, knight e7, knight e1. So that white can push the f pawn if possible. So black plays knight d7 and he's preparing f5. White plays bishop e3, developing the bishop, and then comes f5. So because of moving the knight, white is able to play the f3 move to defend, and f4. Now you can see this beautiful pawn structure for black pointing here, where black will attack and white will be attacking on this side because his pawns are pointing this way. Bishop goes back and now g5. So when you're playing the king's Indian, you should not worry about your king safety and just stay there. You need to do whatever you can to attack. You cannot attack just with pieces. Your pawns have to create weaknesses there. So g5, h5 and all are moves that you should be always ready to play when you're playing the king's Indian defense. So now it can look scary for white as well. It's risky for black, but it's also scary for white because black is going to bring his pieces here and start pushing these pawns. So knight d3, knight f6, shifting his pieces there. c5, you can just ignore it. There's nothing happening there, so he just ignores it. h5 to play g4. So white plays h3 to stop it. Rook f7, a slight maneuver of the rook and the bishop will help in getting them to even better squares. c6, again you can ignore it. a5, just to stop the queenside pushes. Takes, and b4. Bishop c8, a very cool move because now the bishop is active here than on b7. It's not doing much on b7. And he's ignoring this pawn takes pawn problem. So pawn takes pawn, black is not even spending time to take back. Black plays bishop h6. Kasparov plays bishop h6. By the way, Kasparov is a former world champion. He was world champion for a long time. Now retired, knight b4. So from white side, what should white do? White should try to create problems on this side for the black, for the black player. So getting the knight to c6, bishop b5, getting his rooks in, then attacking c7. That's what usually white does on the queen side. If he is successful, he'll have a better position. So g4 now. Kasparov decides it's the right time to push g4. Knight c6, queen moves. Takes, and takes. Of course, we can't take back because bishop is there, queen is there. So it's a pawn sacrifice. So white is 2 pawns up. This is an extra pawn. This is also an extra pawn now. But at the cost of this pawn, black has opened up his h5. So bishop g5. Now rook h7, queen h6 is coming. Right? Bishop f3, giving extra support to g2. Queen h6. And rook e1. If rook h7 in this position, white can just move the king and escape. That is why black puts more pieces there. Knight h4, exchanging of either of the two bishops. White decides to exchange like that. Bishop takes. And g5. So here you have to see that black is threatening bishop g3. Bishop g3 and queen h2. King moves. There will be problems for the king. Also, right now, there's a threat on the rook. So after bishop h4, he first plays g5. If he directly plays rook e2, then after bishop g3, the king has nowhere to run. Like for example, king f1 is directly mate. And if king doesn't go there, then anyway queen h2 is mate. That is a problem. That is why white plays g5 to make the queen or bishop move away, and then he plays rook e2. Now black doesn't go bishop g3, he gets one more piece in. Knight g4. Because now that knight can jump to e3. Rook b1 and bishop g3. Queen d3, and here comes queen h4, and that's it. Black is threatening mate. If king moves, then knight e3 is anyway going to come. Or actually, if king moves, then it's mate. Sorry. So king cannot move. If white makes space for the king by moving the rook, then knight e3 will come. And now the king is totally under arrest. No squares to move, and queen h2 is going to be mate. So this after queen h4, Korchnoi resigned. So this was a total dominating game by the black player, Garry Kasparov, thanks to the king's Indian. So this is the kind of attack that black player launches on white. And later we will see some games where white attacks on the queen side and wins the game. But for now, this should give you a good idea on how to play it from the black side of things.